9, it's time to start. Welcome everyone. And in this webinar, we will discuss how to give your analog or on-site workshops a digital boost. The hybrid workshops are a big thing, but we will discuss that in another webinar. And today we will focus on workshops where everyone is gathered in the same venue. We will use Svava for voting and for insights. So please join the Svava meeting. There should be a QR code or also a button in the chat for you to enter. And I will shortly share my screen as well for those of you who are in the commute or unable to join for any other reason. We will talk about how to make sure everyone is heard and why that is important, how you mix digital and analog tools, how to save time when documenting workshops, and of course you will be able to download Peter's ABC for workshops. And if you are interested to know more about Svava after this webinar, you can book either a personal demo with me or join an upcoming webinar on the 12th of November that will be an introduction to Svava and its features. And I will get back to all of you after this webinar. Also, please note that this webinar is recorded. As you see on my screen, we are using Svava. And the first question is, how do you feel about hosting on-site workshops again? And for me, I really look forward to it. And I know that a lot of people do. And it's great to use these types of check-ins, etc., just to get the feel of the room, for example. I will now change question. So you can answer what is the best thing about working with workshops. And while you do that, I will introduce myself. My name is Lotta Strand. I'm one of the founders of Svava. And I have been working a lot with international workshops, for example, in large EU projects. And I work daily to make Svava better, helping our users and partners increase engagement and effectiveness in their meetings and workshops. Peter, welcome. I'll give the stage to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Lotta. Well, I've been around a little bit longer than you have. My name is Peter Bjellerup. I'm used to being called Mr. Peter because my family name is difficult to pronounce in foreign languages, also for lots of Swedes who are not from the very south. I have some 3 decades and a bit of experience of challenging the rim of the comfort zone, I used to say. Before I started my little company, Brightsider, my one-man show, I worked for 15 years as a consultant for IBM. All over the world, but both remotely and on site. During that time, I had remote managers, none closer than Stockholm, 600 kilometers from here, and colleagues in teams over time zones, countries, continents, you name it. I have trained more than 1,000 consultants and some project managers within IBM, including in actually facilitating workshops. And in 2020, when I realized that people were so scared when they were sent to work from home, I realized that, hey, they are coming into my comfort zone. I've been doing that since 2008, and I've been productive. It boosted my engagement, and I've enjoyed it. So I thought, now my mission is clear. I should help others get comfortable on my home turf, because they definitely weren't. So that's what I've been trying to do since then.
Very nice. A big mission, to say the least. And Svava, for those of you who are new to us, is a digital tool a web-based tool, or you can also access it through Microsoft Teams, that makes it easier to run more engaging and effective meetings and workshops. We have about 5,000 registered users spread across 5 continents, and users do use Svava for recurring meetings, such as weekly team meetings or project reviews, but also for workshops like brainstorming, SWOTs, retrospects, etc. And if we look at the result from this simple question, I see that people are looking forward to the creativity, the inspiration, interacting with people, and of course, working on creating opportunities together. I will also go into another question about what the challenges are that we recognize with workshops. And Peter, or analog or on-site workshops seem to have this sort of dreamlike shimmer around them when we look back into what was it like, and taking us back to a time of warm coffee and friendly faces and amazing discussions. But what are your expectations of the upcoming fall and its workshops?
Yeah, you get me to giggle there a bit, because it's fantastic how during these times of separation and working from home, very mundane things have taken on, as you call it, a romantic shimmer. I mean, who would ever think something romantic and be longing for a coffee machine or a water cooler, or for that sake, a workshop or a conference room that needs fresh air? I think that we will see an initial euphoria. Oh, we're back in the office, back with our colleagues, great. And then, a kind of awakening that, there are some drawbacks that we had forgotten, like, for example, in a workshop, interpreting the scribbles of people, of others on Post-its or flip charts, or documenting the results under stress, or the balancing of the talkatives with the silent ones, and well, go on and go on. And then suddenly you will realize that you've gained some insight during the pandemic and realize that it is possible. Now, we're not talking hybrid today, but still, you will realize that it is possible to include somebody remotely, either because they had some kind of accident or problem that made them unavailable to come, or because you really are so eager to have them on in the workshop but they can't come because they're too distant or something.
Yeah.
But you still want them. So I think we will see some of that happening too.
Very nice. I'm just popping up the result here of the poll. We can see that the results are quite spread, but the workshop result is a photo of a whiteboard. Is of course something that many recognize, but also the load of flip charts, papers in the closets. Do you have many of those, Peter?
Yes, I actually threw a kilo or two out of paper when I went through my flip charts to prepare the ABC for workshops.
All right, tell us about your thoughts of workshops generally.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. In connection with that, you're free to download my workshop ABC, and that is general. It has nothing to do with on-site or online or whatever. And there are a couple of general things. One thing is the importance of the purpose. One purpose to rule it all, like in Lord of the Rings. You have to be clear on that. You have to work it out very thoroughly with the sponsor or and so beforehand, because it guides everything, including who should participate. And also the character of the workshop. You will see in that PDF that often we try to sort of take too big a grip on things and try to do it all in one workshop. It's often better to split it up in pieces. Maybe idea generation, then some kind of preparation, and then some kind of decision, because it shouldn't be the same people in those, perhaps. Another one, the conductor cannot also be the concept master. The conductor, which is the facilitator, it's actually not a good idea if they are an expert in the field, because then you will end up with a lecture instead, or a seminar or so. Because the facilitator's role is to keep the process on track towards the intended product, which are both derived from the purpose. And so those are my four biggest things there. Yes, sorry,
yeah,
Lotta.
thank you. No, don't worry. But one of the topics of today's webinar is how to make sure that everyone is heard. And this might seem like a basic thing that everyone knows, but how come it is so hard? And Peter, I know that you are working with a specific method to make sure that no one is silent. Could you tell us more about that, but also how digital tools can help us in our analog workshops?
I'll be happy to do that. To start with, everybody getting heard has nothing to do with democracy or being nice. It goes back to the purpose, because they are there for a reason. If they stay silent for one reason or another, you've wasted the expertise they are supposed to bring to the workshop. So actually, what I'm presenting is one solution to three challenges. The first one being this of getting everybody to get heard. The other is the curse of the spokesperson. And you might wonder why is he trashing the spokesperson? Well, it's not the person per se, but a spokesperson often gets reduced to becoming some kind of secretary, writing on the flip chart or whatever, and then they are not part of the discussion, so they don't contribute to the discussion as they were supposed to do, as they are participating for a reason. Secondly, when they then do the spokesperson thing and present to the rest, they too often present their own mind, not what the group has agreed on. And thirdly, and this is something I worked a lot with together with Anna Malmsten this spring, when we had a series of almost 20 workshops online, is that most of us are pretty far away from the capacity of journalists to think, speak, and write simultaneously. And therefore, we need, and we often try to do so, separate reflection, discussion, and documentation. I mean, we've all experienced in on-site workshops where we are where the facilitator, be it us or somebody else, says, "Okay, you should start writing post-its now, in silence, on your own, and no discussion." And then soon enough, there's always some group where somebody starts talking and they have a discussion anyway, and somebody takes over. So therefore, what we started doing in digital workshops was that first we presented the topic to talk about or think about in the plenary session, and said, okay, shut off your camera and your microphone and put your thinking cap on, maybe write notes on a piece of paper or whatever, and do it on your own. Not until afterwards, we sent them out in breakout rooms for discussion only. And then when they came back, then it was time to document. Everybody could do it. We used, you can use it, a designated tool, or the chat for that. It's a bit difficult in the chat, but you can still use it. So my thought for on-site workshops is to use the same method and basically have people think about it, but however the seating is, not split them into groups until after they've done the thinking. and then when they come back, use a digital tool to collect their input. And of course, I would be happy to do it with Svava, of course.
For example, like taking an example from us, we have users that before the pandemic combined analog workshops tools like Post-its or Lego or clay for that matter, with a digital for documentation, like you said, having them come back and do the best input in a digital tool. And this is, in my opinion, a great way of taking the best out of two worlds, and to have those analog methods like Lego or clay to spark that creativity and dialogue, but also to start sharing inputs and ideas into Svava, for example, to optimize productivity and to make sure that everything is captured. If you have everyone take responsibility of writing their ideas in Svava, you also take away the need of having one person taking notes for everyone, but also the time-consuming effort of transcribing those post-it notes afterwards. And this way of working also helps with separating idea from author, avoiding people holding back or judging ideas based on who wrote them, which can be a big problem in in-house workshops, where you actually physically see who does write what and put it on the flip chart or the whiteboard. And as a facilitator, Peter, how do you handle the fact that some don't share what is on their mind when it is clear who wrote what, or as it is with the flip charts, for example?
Yeah. Well, I think we've all either heard or, as I experienced, the drawback of having the boss in the room, especially in countries with very hierarchical organizations. So that's, of course, a first thing. Maybe separate the hierarchical levels and have a series of workshops. But still, this is a challenge, irrespective of if you're doing it digitally or on site. I mean, in a digital, if it's only a meeting, for example, in Zoom, you can change your name, you can shut off your camera, and you can be pretty anonymous as long as you are in listen-only mode. But as soon as you start getting active or write in the chat, it will soon show who you are. And as you say, handwriting on Post-its give you away. So the easiest way to get around this is the possibility of anonymous posting in a digital tool, as far as I can see. And now, Nikolai, a bit of a sales pitch maybe for Lotta. How does that work in Svava?
Well, as those of you who have participated in the polls, for example, you see that you voted without anyone knowing who you were. And that is a great way of combining digital tools with analog ones. You can use the anonymity in the digital space with the social setting of the analog workshops. So you really give that digital boost to your analog workshops. But if we use digital tools, Peter, can we use like the built-in free whiteboards in Teams or Google or similar? And what is your experience from your workshops?
Yeah, well, they're great tools. I'm a bit sort of hesitant about the inbuilt digital whiteboards. They are, of course, improving by the month, but still, they are one workshop only. They don't have a life before and no life after, which means that, and the only documentation you get is a PDF or a picture, and input and output is in the same interface. Then the standalone whiteboards are better, because they can live on before and after, or even over several workshops. It's a bit like not having a conference room, but a war room where you don't need to wipe the boards and take down your flip charts. But they have a threshold of learning, understanding before you can have your participants using them. So for a single workshop with one group, with on a one instance with a group of people, I think if it's less than 3 hours or so, it's not worthwhile. Then I'd use something else. And then simply you can use ordinary online documents like Google Docs or Word online, and they can work very well, actually, within their somewhat more limited scope. But what these things all have in common is that they the input and output is in the same interface. So it easily gets very annoying and disturbing, distracting, because when you try to write notes, you see the contributions of everybody else flying around, and you can get distracted. So in some of you can control the view, but or the participant can control what they see, not everything. But as a facilitator, you can't control it, at least not individually.
And in Svava, for example, you can make sure that attendees only see the activity that we are working on currently, and keeping them on track throughout the session. And that eliminates the hassle of trying to collect your people or attendees. But to summarize, using a digital tool do save you loads of time when it comes to analog and digital in a combination, and the result is immediately digitized, no matter usually what type of tool you are using, allowing you to spend your time on better things than transcribing Kenny's handwriting, for example. And I know I said in the beginning that we will save hybrid workshops for later, and it will probably be more or less rule that we have participants joining remotely from now on. Can you just share some quick tips, Peter, on how to handle some participants joining remotely?
Yeah, it will happen for sure. And typical consultant answer, it depends. But I would say that the key thing is to make sure that we are all in the same meeting, in the same setting, which means something digital to hold it all together. Because I'm shifting a little bit here between meeting and workshop, but what has happened too often is that you have one group in a physical space, and then a few people who are in a different digital meeting, but not everybody is in both meetings, or in the one of the same meeting. So therefore, I think having a digital tool to hold it all together is key. And then of course, bringing the digital or the remote participants into the room by, for example, have their faces on the big screen and so on. So that is the key. Also, with thinking which tools, of course, you will have the challenge of, should I show a whiteboard or should I show a presentation? And they all compete for the same space. And that is why I think a tool like Svava, where you can put input on, for example, your phone or some other device, will relieve a little bit of that. But I unfortunately, there is no 100% solution, and I think nobody has it. And I think it is also going to vary depending on the situation. Yeah. But I think making sure everybody is in one place, at least somewhere, is the key thing.
I had this really interesting discussion the other day with a person who shared his input and how he did it. He had, say, 10 people in the room and 3 people joining remotely. And he set up this buddy system where one person in the room was responsible for one person joining remotely. And they had that person joining remotely on their laptop or iPad, and then physically walked around with them, making sure that they heard, saw, and were able to contribute in an equal manner to the other. So when they went into breakout rooms, they physically walked with their buddy into that room. So I thought that was an awesome way of working.
Yeah, it's a good way. I agree with it. Or at least you should at least have somebody in the physical room responsible for keeping an eye on the people. So I mean, I've had the version with one person having a buddy role for all the people in the who are participate remotely. But this guy had gone one step further, and I'm sure it can work in some instances.
Absolutely,
it's the right way. It's the right sort of direction.
Yes, and Peter, I'm going to share your ABC here for everyone to download, but so they can read out more about what your thoughts are and what to take with them. But to use these last 2.5 minutes, how would you like to consolidate this session? What would you like people to bring with them afterwards?
First of all, I would like them to not be afraid of bringing digital tools into physical workshops. I mean, I've been very digital for a very long time, but I was hesitant to couldn't see the point. But I think experiment and try. I've changed my mind, I can say, on that. The second is my listening to my gospel about the overwhelming value of working out your purpose and preparation well, both for the result and for the engagement of the participants. The value, it goes together with my first point, of digital tools like Svava, but there are others, in combination with a well thought through process to democratize workshops and to extract all the information and ideas needed, and to get sort of return on investment in engaging participants. And finally, for facilitators, a way out of the whiteboard and post-it bog, especially when it comes to documentation afterwards. I mean, I love them in the room, but I hate them afterwards.
Yeah.
So those are my the four things I hope for.
All right, thank you. And for me, I think that in-house workshops don't mean returning completely to analog methods. We can take the best from two worlds. Digital tools do not mean we cannot use Lego, clay, etc. It means that we optimize the takeaways from those exercises. And like Peter says, focus on the purpose and human ideas first, and optimize for managing these as well as possible, with as much time saving as possible for you as a host. And with that, I would like to say thank you so much for joining today. If you're more interested in Svava, please join our upcoming webinar or do contact me after this. And I do hope to see you soon again. Thank you so much. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Lotta. Thanks for having me.
Have a great day.